Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy, but America's agricultural landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertisement campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. Kyle Bauer and the Real Ag crew bring you truthful, unbiased information about real agricultural concerns. From the producers who make your food, to the store where you buy the final product, and everything in between. This is Real Ag. Now, here's your host, Kyle Bauer.
Once there was great herds of bison that roamed North America. Then they nearly disappeared. The American bison has made a great comeback due in part to American agriculture. Bison is our topic today on Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible by
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
First off, let's clarify. The animal we'll be speaking about today is the North American bison, but it's also referred to as buffalo.
Buffalo eat grass really well. They eat quite a variety of different legumes and forbs and sedges and grasses. They make real good use of what's available out there. What we like to see in a pasture is what you call a pasture salad. There's a little of everything, not just specifically like a brome field or something of that nature, but a good mix is a good recipe for them. They will eat a lot of things that cattle won't eat. Bindweed. They will eat bindweed in a young tender stage. They will eat that up, pretty well control it. Johnson grass. I've got one friend that's had a Johnson grass problem. He doesn't have it anymore. They just pretty much take care of it. Buffalo are a wild animal. They're very adaptable to their surroundings, but they have a breeding season like the wild animals. They have a rut, and like the deer and elk do. It's typically from late July through August, maybe into the first part of September. And so typically their breeding or their calving season is April and May, sometimes into June. The females don't cycle every 6 weeks like beef cows do. They will recycle again, but it's not a timed event. Probably 95% of the calves born are born in the spring. And it's a 9-month gestation, 2 weeks shy of beef cow's gestation, so very similar. The natural cycle of things is for these animals to have a breeding and a calving season. The calving season, I'm sure, evolved over time to be the best possible outcome. That meaning the animals go dormant in the wintertime when the grass goes dormant. And so their nutritional needs are less in the wintertime. It doesn't take near the feed volume or quality that it does for other domesticated livestock. And so during the third trimester, they're not taking in an exorbitant amount of protein. Therefore, that fetus is not growing great big. So when it's calving season, you have a little fetus that's not hard to birth, and it hits the ground running right when the grass is greening up. She goes to milk. We refer to them as wild animals because they haven't been domesticated. They're a very adaptable animal that can get used to just about any environment. They become used to us if we're around them often enough. They will tolerate our presence. They read our body language very well to know whether we're a threat or not. If we're out there feeding, usually, life is good and everything's okay. If we've got other things in mind, they usually know it before we do. And I don't think we're going to get that bred out of them. They've evolved over millions of years, and that time stamp is already there. These animals are very hardy. You can't hardly insult them with a sledgehammer. They're very strong, great immunity system. If you keep them healthy and you keep them wormed and keep them fed, they will take care of themselves very well. In the wintertime, you'll find them on the north side of a slope looking into the wind. In the summertime, they'll seek shade if it's available. Sometimes they'll be laying out in the sun and it doesn't matter. They evolved here, and this climate is nothing that they can't handle. One thing about the buffalo, since they are a wild animal, they don't gain by the book like cattle do. And so if you have a pen of 100 of them and you start them all on feed today, and 100 or 200 days later you decide to pull them off, you're not going to have 100 head that are ready to go to slaughter. And so they kind of regulate themselves by virtue of their genetics and their propensity to gain or not gain as well. And when we're selecting breeding stock, we're looking for conformation. We look for height and depth and width and thickness, just like the cattle guys do. We're selling pounds at the end of the day, just like anybody else is. But we're also understanding that this is a very social group. It's a matriarchal society. The lead cow is running the show, and they all have their place. They will have certain animals that are followers and certain animals that are leaders. And sometimes the leaders aren't so friendly. And trying to take that away and trying to breed that out of the herd is not necessarily a good idea. That's what makes them strong and what makes them viable. And most of the producers that have been in this a while understand that, and understand that while we don't want dangerous animals, we don't want domesticated cattle. We want the wild aspects of them that allow them to be hardy, allow them to be free-ranging, allow them to take care of themselves, so we don't have to take care of them. There's a lot of people out there that have their first exposure to buffalo is at Yellowstone. And as I said before, they're very adaptable, and they get used to traffic, they get used to people, they get used to everything. But they have a real space around them that they're cognizant of all the time. They're very aware that this is close enough, and if you come any closer, you're going to be in my space, and you're going to end up moving one way or the other. We see people all the time walking up trying to get close to them so they can take pictures, set their children on them while they're lounging in the grass, in the sun. It's a really bad idea. These animals are wild animals. They don't always appear it. They appear very slow and cumbersome. They are very fast and very agile. They can spin on a dime. They turn on their front legs instead of their hind, so they really can spin on a dime. Very agile, and they do not make good pets.
What sort of facilities are needed to raise bison?
A good 5-strand or 6-strand barbed wire fence is plenty good if it's tight and reasonably tall, 5 foot. Shouldn't have any problem. When it comes time to load or sort or wean calves, you need a little better facility maybe than a lot of the cattle guys have. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a whole big different construction. Making it solid to where it can't be seen through, making it tall enough to where they can't look over, and learning the characteristics of the animal to where it flows for them. They want to move from place to place. Makes it pretty simple. We run between 100 to 200 cows, kind of depends on the drought conditions and the rainfall and the grass available. We've got those in a number of different locations. I don't have them all at home, don't have enough acres. But when we'll feed approximately 200 to 300 head a year for slaughter. Hauling buffalo can be really easy. A trailer that's fairly solid-sided to where they can't see out. Those open bar trailers can be pretty tough. There's too much activity for the buffalo to concentrate on, and that can make them pretty unnerved. You get them into a trailer that's got high sides on it, where they don't see out, and it goes really easy. They calm right down and they travel well. If they are pushing and shoving on each other when you get them in the trailer, you get going down the road and as soon as you can, and that usually gives them something else to concentrate on.
One of the issues in the industry is people who have unreal expectations, get into business quick with limited animal experience, or sometimes with good experience, and for some reason or other do not stay in long. But the rate of in and out has lowered. we believe that we're having more ranchers who come in with realistic expectations, pay more attention to what others have or have not done in a helpful way. And we feel like at least the last 3 years, the market itself has stabilized a whole lot.
The science of raising buffalo is a moving target for us. We don't have a lot of history, and we don't have a lot of background from the universities and from different groups that have done a lot of studies. And so the books are being written now, and we're involved in that process in one form or another. Trial and error has probably been, I'm sure, just like it was in everything else. Trial and error has been the biggest thing to figure out what works and what doesn't. We all have our ideas. I'm not sure the proof is in the pudding yet, but we're working on it. We're getting there.
What are the properties of bison meat?
Buffalo meat is high in iron and protein, a lot of the vitamin B complex, very healthy meat, low in saturated fat. The animal cholesterol pretty much passes through humans. It's the saturated fat in there that creates your own cholesterol that you're after. Cooking it can be very simple. Fat is an insulator, and so it takes longer to heat up fat than it does meat. So it can cook really quickly, and it can dry out really quickly because we don't have the marbling in buffalo that we do in other meats. And so low and slow on roasts is a good option. Medium heat on steaks in a short time is a real good. We don't want to see stuff well done because it can get dried out and not be very palatable.
Roughly the same cuts. The thing that you'll find with the grocery stores, it's display, it's common product.
There's a lot of folks eating green out there. They want to know what their product is. They want to know where it came from. They want to know what it's been fed. They're very conscious to subtherapeutic antibiotics and hormones, and we don't use that kind of stuff. Preparing it correctly is really important. You get fat as an insulator, and if it takes a lot less time or a lot more time to heat up fat than it does meat. And so without that fat, without that marbling content in there, it can cook pretty fast. And so if you're grilling steaks, you want to take your time and not overcook them. If you go to a restaurant and you get a beef steak that isn't necessarily your first choice, you just figure it was a bad animal. A lot of times eating buffalo or bison for the first time, that's their first experience. And if they get one that isn't prepared right and isn't too good, they equate that to buffalo are tough and they're not good, which is not true. So learning how and learning what to do and what not to do becomes pretty important.
Are there other bison products besides meat?
I always say save all my skulls, but I don't do much more with them. It takes time. I say I'm retired. I'm looking for less things to do, but I try to be very reasonable. If somebody else wants to do the work, or we do that. I try to keep a robe on hand, because taking a bison robe, a neighbor taxidermist has told me, he says, you want to take that robe as near the first of the year as you can. That's when the fur is the fullest, and that's where it'll last the longest. And when you do that, then you've got a few weeks of drying it out, then you send it to the tannery for 3 or 4 months. People don't want to wait. You know, when people say, how much is it, they want to be able to pick it up and take it home. And so I try to keep one on hand just for that reason. Occasionally somebody will ask for a cape. That's a head and shoulder mount. And so we try to do that at the same time of the year. I make the arrangement. We talk about which animal, select one, get it in. And as long as I can take it direct to the taxidermist for you, why, that's not much extra work for me, and glad to do it in a very reasonable manner. I keep a lot of bones just for handling and hands-on stuff, particularly with the youth. The wool has a very good value. But like the meat, it has a limited supply. You don't shear bison, you don't pull it off. You either fix up a rubbing device like what we used to use for oilers. Some people have done that, a place to collect it, or you pick it up off the ground. Fiber people seem to really like the bison wool, but you got to find a source for it. And as far as I know, the obvious source is at the packing plants. But somebody has to do that. And I don't know that that's happening yet. There are garments out there that are made, you can spin the wool, spin yarn from the wool, or you can felt it. Either makes a super soft product. You'll see them advertised in our Bison World magazine, and I'm sure other places. You're seeing more leather products, but leather is the same kind of an issue. I have inquiries for the hides for leather, but they want them by the truckloads. Well, if you salt them and stack them up, you know, I'd have a truckload in maybe 3 or 4 years. That's more work. So they need to take their market to the packing plants, I guess, is the most obvious place.
There are two markets for bison. First, we'll talk about ranchers buying and selling the animals.
We had a hell of a good start in the late 90s. We had big ranches in the Dakotas and Wyoming and Montana, switching over 5-generation ranches over to buffalo because they were sick and tired of feeding hay all summer or all winter long and losing X amount of head of beef every year, and they got a few buffalo, and they had no problem. They didn't lose any. They didn't have to feed them near as often. You know, everything was hitting on all sixes, and so they switched over. We didn't do a very good job of marketing our animals into the mainstream, and so we ended up with a lot of animals ready to go and no place to go with them. The demand for the meat was there. We just didn't have a way to get it out to the public, out to the people, and we dropped to zero off the end. We were selling bred cows for $3,000 to $4,500, and we dropped to zero off the end of that. Suddenly they were worth $300 to $450. There was a lot of money borrowed on the $3,000 to $4,500, and we lost those guys. I mean, they went bankrupt.
Yes, we believe the herds are growing, but it's real slow. You also follow the butcher figures in terms of males, females.
In the first Saturday of December every year, we have the Kansas Buffalo Association has their open consignment sale. It's open to anybody wanting to bring animals. We have rules and regulations that they have to follow, testings that are required, that type of thing. We send them ear tags, and we usually get in around 400 to 600 head. We've had as many as 1,208 head, I think was the largest one, but we've kind of narrowed that back down now through attrition to 400 to 600 head is a pretty good average of what we've been running. There's a lot of good breeding animals there. Our focus probably by virtue of volume is establishing a commercial market. One of the advantages that we have in our sale is we provide a price discovery for the commercial market, for the open market. So we have a lot of volume buyers coming, and we have a lot of folks that are just wanting one or two income. There's a lot of good animals there that can go into breeding programs, and the savvy buyers are picking those up, singling them out, and taking them home and putting them to work in their herds.
Now, let's talk about selling the meat to consumers.
Bison is twice what the grocery store price for beef is, and that'll vary. I think I sell out of my freezers in my garage. I do have one other market. I have a meat marketer who sells a variety of meats at the farmer's market in Topeka.
Bison meat and beef, the market don't go hand in hand. It's a supply and demand type deal. So if beef is up, buffalo isn't necessarily up. It runs its own course, and it is more expensive. The retail is probably anywhere from $8 to on up for buffalo, but you can find that in beef in the grocery stores as well. Buying volume, buying bulk can be a lot more economical for folks, and buying locally direct from the producer. Consumers can go to the KBA website, the Kansas Buffalo Association website, and there's a list of members and what they sell. You can find it in a lot of major chain grocery stores, Dillon's, Costco.
Is bison an endangered species?
There used to be a lot of buffalo out there, 30 to 60 million, depending on whose account you read. We know during the bottleneck of the late 1800s, we got down to somewhere between 500 and 1,500. We have, through conservation efforts, both by the zoos and the early ranchers that captured some of these animals and incorporated them into a pasture setting and kept them from being killed off. That was the beginning. Since then, the private rancher and the private producer has probably made one of the best conservation efforts out there.
You'll hear different numbers. Numbers range between 300,000 and 500,000 right now, but we really don't know. I just saw an article that said Yellowstone says their herd is now counted at 4,600. Well, what I've heard is that we've never been able to figure out how many Yellowstone really has. And then in the Dakotas and Wyoming, Montana, there are huge herds that probably haven't been counted very close. It comes off of estimates. Bison have never been labeled endangered. If they were labeled endangered, then they're no longer, I believe they would no longer be a meat product. Just recently we had an issue here because the wood bison of Canada, they moved some to Alaska. Well, the wood bison in Canada are labeled endangered, and they were going to take them to to Alaska. So what are they there? They did DNA testing and found out that the wood bison have the same DNA as our plains bison do down here. There have been wood bison brought to the lower 48 somehow, and what we've noticed particularly as they go further south, that although they're a larger animal up there, in a few generations their size diminishes some. Perhaps, and it makes sense, that size in itself is directly related to environment and the climate.
As far as the private industry goes, we are slaughtering in the area of 50 to 100,000 a year, and probably an equal number between males and females, and so the herd isn't growing very fast, which is good from a standpoint of longevity, but it continues to increase and it continues to grow. Oftentimes the best way to propagate a herd is to start eating them. When the meat becomes popular and becomes of value, industry takes over. People start raising them for profit, and they start producing more and more and more. That's one of the best ways to get the numbers up is to get the meat out in people's mouths, and it becomes profitable. Folks jump on that wagon.
What is the future of the bison?
We need more producers. We need more people to put cows into production in the pastures. The demand for the meat is there. We have the venue to get it to the public. We can always be selling more. All the commercial marketers are shorting their customers or turning down orders that they would love to fill, but they know they can't get the product to fill it. And so we just need more folks out there raising buffalo.
We hope today's show helps to showcase what an amazing animal the bison is. On behalf of the Real Ag crew, I'm Kyle Bauer, and this has been Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible by
The Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.